Yeah, you've had a busy year, right? I mean, it hasn't let up at all.
Not really, no. I mean, we've been working on about 8 or 9 or maybe is it 20 different things all at the same time, as is standard in the family office world. The main focus has been we launched this Biotech fund, but I'm very much still on the buy side in the family office. So my role has become a little schizophrenic because the principal of our family office has stepped out into the fund. So he's become the managing partner, trying to raise capital into this longevity fund, which I can talk about in a bit. But I'm very much still on the buy side, looking at new, interesting direct opportunities, although we're now eyeing up a few VC funds and P funds as well. So
interesting.
Checking out everything, you name it, we'll check it out.
I mean, you do have, you know, as we all know, there's when you know one family office, you know one family office.
Right.
But if you were going to say like the kind of dynamism and the open to opportunities mindset that we think most family offices have, you actually kind of quite typify that. A lot of the time it's like, oh yeah, well we're interested to look, and you're always looking at a few different flavors of things at any one time. It seems to me anyway.
No, definitely, and I think I think because we're a first generation family office, and my principal made the money himself and is now trying to diversify a little bit and is open to all kinds of opportunities. It does help in terms of being able to eye up everything. You know, when you look at a 4th, 5th generation family office that owns all real estate in Mayfair, whatever, they have a pretty clear mandate. You know, they have to make X number of returns a year. They focus on real estate. They maybe have a bit of fixed income. They do this. We're still finding our feet to some extent. You know, we made our money in tech. We've now looked at biotech, but we're thinking, actually, what else is out there? So we've done a bit of due diligence on some real estate stuff, did some tiny little investigation into fixed income. We had a little look at hedge funds. So I mean, we truly are agnostic in terms of sector, stage, jurisdiction, asset class, strategy, everything, which makes my life very interesting but quite difficult, as you can imagine.
Hectic at the same time.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you think that's because it's really interesting? You made that point about the generation stage of the family office. That dynamism probably comes from the fact that there aren't multiple generations. And there aren't multiple stakeholders. There's probably one or a very small pool of stakeholders, which means decisions can be quite quick, right?
Definitely. I mean, so for a first generation family office like us, where my boss has made the money and it's his money, his alone. And I mean this in the nicest possible way, it's a bit of a military dictatorship with the general at the top who makes all the decisions, essentially. And the rest of us are loyal foot soldiers who put ideas in front of him. He says yes or no. Sometimes it goes the other way. He says, I want to check out hedge funds that do long, short equity, whatever, you know. And so we then investigate that world. But it's very clear, the chain of command is very clear. You're right, when it's 5th generation, 6th generation, there's 30 different principals. They all want different things. One's interested in buying yachts.
There's politics in there as well.
Exactly. Yeah, that's right. And often, investment professionals in those types of family office just want to keep their job. It's very much about wealth preservation. Whereas we're quite aggressive in terms of trying new things, going very early, venture capital. So we're very much wealth generation focused. So yeah, it just depends on the flavor and strategy and stage of the family office, I think.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Sounds like a really exciting version of a family office. I know there are many out there where you have to be, regimented, but in a slightly more dull way than you're talking about the military side of things.
For sure.
How did you come to it? How did you come to this specific role? Because this working in a family office is a dream for lots of people.
Yeah.
And it's working in a family office is a hard thing to achieve.
Sure.
You've got to work through it, and lots of people in family offices taken very organic routes to it. And I think you had quite an organic route, didn't you?
Completely, yeah. I mean, I spent 7 years of my 20s abroad doing all kinds of mad things in various weird places that, I probably shouldn't talk about on camera, but I enjoyed it. And then I came back to the UK, I guess I was about 27, had absolutely no money left, no regrets either, a lot of adventures. But I thought, it's probably time to get a job, seeing as all my friends from Oxford had these illustrious careers by that point, and I definitely didn't. So I started at a bank just on this street somewhere, Berkeley Street, working at the Salamanca Group, doing bits and pieces really. And then I transitioned I moved to a fintech. There was a kind of fund manager search service for investors that was linked to Euromoney, the FTSE 250 listed kind of conferences business really. And that was great. I mean, we were essentially talking to investors about what they were interested in on the fund side. So an investor would say, I want an emerging market debt manager in Asia that does X, Y, Z, who do you know? We'd put 10 names in front of them, and if they ended up allocating to one of those managers, we'd take a percentage of the first-year base fees from that manager. It was fun. It wasn't massively successful in my day, although I think they're doing better now, and it's got nothing to do with me leaving, I like to think. But the great thing for me was I met a huge number of investors from the single family office space all the way up to the sovereign wealth level, and everything in between, pension funds, foundations, insurance companies, etc. But the family offices were the gang that I clicked with the best, because I found them to be a colourful bunch of weirdos, and I mean that with love, who are all interested in different things. As you said, there's a family office and there's another family office, and they're all wildly different. This guy wants to save children in Uganda. This guy wants to build coffee plantations in Brazil. This one wants to do Berlin real estate. And every single conversation is wildly different. And so I had conversations with my boss, and he was interested in age-related disease prevention, so longevity. My now boss, I should say. And I thought, yeah, that's super interesting what he's doing, incubating companies in this emerging science. So I spoke to him a little bit, and then one day he said, actually, do you want to just come work for me? And that was 2.5 years ago, and I said, absolutely, yeah, let's do it. So yeah, very, very weird, organic route in there that was not, I didn't leave university and think, I want to work for a family office, that's my dream. I had no idea what a family office was until about 3-4 years ago. But no, it's been great, and now I'm loving it, yeah.
I guess you get so many things put in front of you across the whole investment spectrum.
Yeah.
There's stuff that, there's a certain amount of subjects that you knew going in, that you probably had to learn a lot on the fly, and that gives you this incredible breadth. I often think that in this space, everyone assumes that everyone else knows more than they do, but actually we all know our little bit, and we all know that little silo quite well, and it's often that people are scared to ask the question about, okay, well, this is an area, I had a question the other day about investing in electric vehicles.
Yeah.
Being able to ask that question of someone else and share that information is a really powerful thing. You have got a fantastic breadth of experience and exposure across those bits. Is it still all led by the longevity life sciences thing, or you're looking at everything now?
Yeah, I mean, yes to both sides. I would say there's that old cliche in investing that you need to know everything about something and something about everything. And indeed, the everything about something part is biotech, which for me has been a challenge because my highest level of training in that space is a GCSE in biology from about 17 years ago or something. So, that has been a challenge, getting up to scratch with telomere attrition and genomic instability and senescent cells and all these long, complicated words that I had no idea what they meant until a couple of years ago. But on the flip side, yes, I mean, I get exposed to things every day of the week that are totally different. Yeah, all kinds of weird areas of deep tech that I didn't know existed. And the nature of venture capital is you are glimpsing into the future to some extent. You're looking at people who are saying, I've come up with this great idea that in 5 years will revolutionize the world. What do you think? And so, I mean, that's fascinating. And you see AI solutions, you see, electric vehicles. Asteroid mining was a company I came across, pretty cool.
Wow.
Laser-powered satellites, as in a satellite in space that's powered by a laser. Yep, fairly self-explanatory, I guess. But all kinds of interesting, wonderful things that I'm massively unqualified to understand. But yeah, it's an amazing education. You just have to jump in and try your absolute hardest to understand what the hell is going on before you then present it to your boss and say, hey, this is a great opportunity. So yeah. So
you mentioned VC there. Does your office see itself as a VC mindset kind of place? I mean, you talked earlier about some fun stuff. I think you've always been led as an individual investor, and the fun stuff has kind of followed on from that a bit. But you're a VC mindset to start with, and then maybe you'll look to bring in the experts in the fund side of things when.
Correct, yeah. And in fact, VC often stands for venture capital, but in our case, it's venture creation because my boss is a serial entrepreneur who builds companies from scratch. So although we do look at early stage companies and put tickets in, the way, our bread and butter really is to find a guy with a microscope who's just come up with something amazing and build a company out of that. And my boss has founded over 20 companies. Or co-founded over 20 companies. So we go in very early. We build out the teams, maintaining a lot of equity, dilute equity a little bit later on to raise capital, sell. That's the model we've employed quite successfully. But yeah, we go in super early stage. If we find a guy who's come up with some interesting idea, fresh out of uni, who has no understanding of how to make a business, we love it because we can jump in and it's mutually beneficial. We're now looking at slightly later stage stuff, eyeing up funds, as you said, a few other more traditional asset classes. But yeah, our go-to asset class is VC for sure. And so obviously we talked to a lot of the other VCs in town. Some of them have participated in our portfolio company rounds. We've put money into some of their stuff. But yeah, the VC community is another group that we hang out with a lot, as well as the family office world.
So your fund that you've built this year, over this past year or so, is between the family office and the VC space, and it fits in nicely in that gap.
Exactly. So as I said, we built this biotech fund, and we brought in Jens Eckstein, who's the ex-president of SR1, which is the venture arm of GlaxoSmithKline. Massively experienced in the biotech space. He's been working in it for about 25 years, taken 18 companies to IPO, done 12 acquisitions. Yeah, I mean, really a godfather in the space. And so we've brought him in as someone who really understands the world of biotech, and then obviously Nils understands company building. And so we're hoping that the combination will be killer. And the focus is geroscience, which is a kind of trendy new word, meaning the science of aging. Instead of trying to cure Parkinson's with this drug, Alzheimer's with this, cancer with that one, the idea is why do we get any of these things in the first place? And there's 9 reasons that have been isolated for this. Many of them are things we can't really deal with right now, but some of them we can. So for instance, senescent cells. The cells in your body divide 10, 11, 12 times and then kill themselves. And that's good, that's what you want. But sometimes they don't, they stick around and they inflame surrounding cells and cause you all kinds of problems. So we found a guy in the Netherlands who's found a chemical that can selectively kill these particular cells. And, if it works out, I've seen the mouse results, which are pretty impressive, but if the human results are anything vaguely similar, it will increase healthy lifespan by, 20% something. And so obviously there's 2 sides to that. There's the impact idea of changing the world, making it a better place, but you're also going to make a huge amount of money off the back of that. So that both sides appeal to us, to be honest.
Doing good is not anathema to profit.
Correct.
They should go hand in hand.
They should go hand in hand.
And actually, that's kind of a central principle of everything we're trying to do here.
Yeah,
is move away from that, capitalism first and only
sure.
model. It's combining those 2 things. That's kind of central to a membership. We have there's a no douchebag rule, and I think that no douchebag rule includes that exact sentiment. So,
sure.
I could not be with you any further.
Yeah.
So what's that? Is it the Benjamin Button Fund? What's the
could
name?
be, yeah, could be. It's called Apollo Health Ventures, but there is a Benjamin Button component to it because actually we're looking at preventing aging and possibly even reversing it in some cases. So I don't think, Benjamin Button's probably going a little far, but when you look at why we age on a cellular level, there may well be solutions to these problems, and we are trying to find chemicals that will stop that process or reverse it. Not in some kind of creepy way. I think the ultimate ambition is not that we look like a baby at the end of it and live forever. It's more to extend a healthy lifespan. So rather than being able to live to 500 strapped to a machine and not being able to move, if you can die at 100 but you feel 40, that's pretty good. That's going to be pretty decent. And I'm 32, so I'm hoping we'll get there soon, so we can preserve my current beautiful state, as you can see. Let's see.
So that fund sounds really exciting.
Yeah.
Who's allowed in? Are you going to other family offices? Is it institutional investors? Is it capped? Where's it currently sitting?
Yeah, so we're raising about 100 million for that, and we're at about 80 at the moment. Okay. The other LPs tend to be other family offices we know well. It resonates well as a message with family offices, because if you've got $1 billion and you've got all the Ferraris and Lamborghinis and private yachts and everything that you could possibly buy with money, you get bored of that. You get bored of that, and you are getting older. That's something that affects all of us. It's universal. And so the idea that we could actually do something about that is quite compelling. It's not just another fund that's going to make you X return. It's not just another penthouse in Mayfair. It will actually affect you and your family's life in a more profound sort of way. So it's been a challenge to raise during the year of COVID, because as everyone knows who tries to do capital raising, people are very unwilling to give you money without seeing you in the flesh. Zoom call is nice, but to hand over millions to someone over Zoom is a little uncomfortable. I don't know if I would do it myself. I don't know if I will do it myself when I've got my billions, inevitable. But the idea that you're going to give money to someone over an email transaction is hard. So we've missed the face-to-face meetings.
Yeah, you've got trust and you've got due diligence there as well. And there's two very, very crucial bits: the relationship and actually getting to know someone.
Yeah.
You know, staring them in the eye and
Exactly.
shaking a hand, and having that human conversation, which that bit of Zoom removes.
Yeah.
And then the due diligence. You know, you need to look under the bonnet. Which
Yeah,
is
exactly.
very hard to do.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the other thing is, you know, I guess one positive of COVID is that it has proven the need for a resilient healthcare infrastructure, and so biotech has actually become quite appealing as a asset class, a strategy for some investors, because they think, oh yeah, actually it is actually fairly important to allocate to this space. Of course, aging is a little different to infectious diseases, but you know, much for muchness in some sense.
Yeah, the appetite has been growing in family offices there for quite some time.
Yeah,
when it comes to health tech in general. Really,
exactly.
isn't it?
Yeah.
What other interesting trends have you been seeing there outside of the biotech world?
Yeah.
What are the things you've been looking at?
I mean, I've been looking at crypto quite actively. We don't allocate to it, but I do on a personal level. And yeah, I mean, we'll see. Bitcoin's flirting with $20,000. It's gone a bit down the last couple of days, annoyingly, but that's fine. So that's interesting. I mean, let's see. I like it because I think it's sensible to allocate a small amount to crypto because the upside potential is so huge. So I like it as a space. I've also been looking at a few other kind of, I mean, we built it, we on the family office side, we bought a Polish software development company. So that's been fairly interesting, you know, building out apps and websites and blockchain type stuff across the board for all kinds of weird and wonderful companies. A Chicago-based liquid cooling solutions company used it. A nutrition company in the UK has been using it. So I mean, we've been sort of quite successful with rolling that service out to people globally. But it's on the less sexy end of side. I mean, it's just building websites and apps. But there'll always be a need for that. There'll always be a need for that. What other stuff have you been looking at? Real estate interests me because it's been going up and down so dramatically. I don't know if there's a huge value play potential here, or if we're all going to lose all of our money. Again, on a personal level, I'm looking at buying a flat in London, so I'm keeping a close eye on London real estate. But yeah, I'll get back to you on that.
And whatever happens with the nascent glut of office space that we're going to come back to next year, are we going to all go back into the office, or are we going to have, you know, urban farms on Oxford Street because there's no one in the office?
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I think we're going to see a lot of office spaces converted into residential property because I think a lot of people will have left London and can't be bothered to come back. I mean, I've got friends who've left London who have no intention of coming back, can work remotely from a beach in Costa Rica, well, why not? And I'm fairly receptive to that argument as well. But on the other hand, you can't beat the face-to-face, both in terms of capital raising and you know, co-investing or whatever. And London will always be the family office centre of the universe, in my opinion. You've got a handful of other places, but you know, where we are now in the middle of Mayfair, this is where all the family offices are, really. And so I have no intention to move.
I think that hybrid of spending that time away from London, away from the big financial centres, maybe living out in the country, living by the beach, but then coming into a members club or a part-time office. We're certainly looking ourselves at doing retreats for people in some of these places where we can, like with this pop-up, we'll actually do a week's pop-up in a French villa, or we'll be in Ibiza for a month, or what have it. And that new work-life balance is going to be a completely new, really quite exciting thing, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
So looking forward to that next.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, you know, a lot of companies, I think it was at Microsoft, have announced that no one ever has to come back in ever again, ever. I mean, it's just unthinkable if you said that a year ago. So we will be seeing a completely new world for everyone in how to work. I still think that, you know, some of the big deals will be done in the members clubs, face to face. Because, as I said, I mean, I just think that human connection is something that will never really go away.
Never going to get rid of it. It's just the hybrid of tech and a new way of working, and you know, we'll see where we go with that. But I think it's
for sure.
exciting.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Going back to you're talking about the various deals that you've looked at this year. One of the questions that I always find fascinating to ask a family office is how you go about sourcing those things, because you know you've got the guys on the other side of this, you've got the entrepreneurs, you've got the founders. Finding someone like you is the dream, really, because you know you're looking for that dynamic investor. You're looking for someone who would be excited by your idea.
Sure. How
do you go about sourcing these things?
Yeah, I mean, this is the challenge. This is very difficult. I mean, I think I've got a pretty decent network of peers, of family offices, and entrepreneurs, and indeed sort of scientists and tech geniuses in my network. And you know, I don't know everything about anything, actually. But I do know almost everyone, or not yet, but that's the dream at least. And so if I'm looking at some particular bizarre area that interests me, some sort of clean tech opportunity that's looking at taking plastic out of the oceans, or artificial meat growing in a vat or whatever, I don't know anything about those things, but I know people that I trust do know about those things. And so I rely on my network heavily in terms of doing due diligence and in terms of deal sourcing. If I get an opportunity from a particular area that looks interesting, let's say I get a real estate fund in Northern Ireland doing XYZ. I mean, how on earth can I judge that? But I've got a huge number of very accomplished real estate investors, so I can just pass it to them and say, hey, what do you make of this? And they can say, yeah, it looks interesting or not. And so I just rely on other people that I know, essentially, for the areas that I don't understand. And indeed, with our biotech focus, we've got a team of hard scientists, Harvard-trained medical professionals who really understand the space in a way that we as investment people can't. I mean, we just don't. And why would we? I mean, when you go on a plane, you trust that the pilot knows how to fly because he's done all the training, everything. And so we have the same philosophy. We look at interesting deals. I got sent an interesting biotech deal yesterday. I look at it, I don't understand most of the words on the teaser. Fine, who cares? I send it to the team of scientists and they say, yeah, very interesting. They say, not so sure, we've seen something similar. And that's fine, and I trust them. And so I use that kind of approach throughout every asset class, which is great because it means I don't actually have to know anything about anything. Yeah. But it also means I'm learning something about everything all the time. So it's great in terms of my personal development.
And is that why, with that thought in mind, is that why you've started to consider funds a bit more? Because as the family office is growing, you can say, okay, well, this VC fund is specialised very much in this, and we can see they're really good at it. This hedge fund would actually be a great addition to our portfolio. Is that how that's evolved? Exactly.
I mean, if we're looking at an area like, say, clean tech, it sounds cool, sounds sexy, sounds interesting. We don't really understand anything about it. If you go the fund route, you don't have to be a genius at stock picking or finding, the next big thing in that space. The fund will give you exposure across the board to a variety of interesting things that in that particular area. And so that's obviously the advantage of going the fund route. You don't have to do huge amounts of due diligence on individual companies. You trust the experts essentially to have done that already. So yeah, I mean that is dictating our interest in funds. We're very early stage in that. We haven't allocated to anything this year yet, but it's something that we'll be working on quite aggressively in the next 6 months.
And how about in that space the fund of funds? So actually looking for the experts to guide you through the fund selection process, because historically fund of funds were very big. They kind of dipped off over the past decade or so, and I think a few of the highest caliber fund of funds have survived this past decade, are really coming through now and providing quite a decent service, especially when it comes to the expertise, but also to the fees as well. Yeah. They're actually paying their way. Would you guys as a family office use a fund of fund? Would that?
Yeah, I mean we're actively looking at fund of funds as well. The fees is an issue, and fees are an issue across the whole fund space. The question of whether the old 2 and 20 model works in the modern world, jury's out. But yeah, I mean fund of funds is an even better way in a sense of getting exposure to a large number of different opportunities across the board. So I mean we haven't allocated to any fund of funds yet, but it is something we're investigating quite aggressively.
Very interesting. So tell me a bit more about about Truventuro.
Sure.
How long has it been around as a family office, and how did it come about?
Yeah, sure. So the principal of the family office founded a company called Casamundo in Germany when he was in his early 20s, which was an online vacation rental search platform, almost like the German Airbnb, you could think of it. Sold it in 2009. With the exit proceeds, went on to incubate a lot of other tech companies, mostly online marketplaces. Some of the bigger ones would be Home2Go, Dreamlines, Finance Check, all companies that are pretty big in Germany, but don't have a huge presence in the UK yet, but we're getting there. And the family office grew really because he brought on we brought on partners rather to manage those portfolio companies and eye up more investments. But when I say eye up more investments, I do mean generally building companies. I don't mean necessarily investing in later stage companies. So the model works like this. The team comes up with an idea in-house for a company. So to give you the example of Home2Go, it's a platform that aggregates other search engines for online vacation rental search. So you type in, I want to go to Paris this weekend for 2-3 days. It searches Airbnb, it searches parisianvillas.co. whatever, it searches this, searches that, and it finds you the best deal. So it's a search engine aggregator. And we copied and pasted that model across a number of different sectors. So car rental, personal credit comparison, and a range of other things. Dreamlines is our second biggest company, which does the same for cruise line. So I want to go to the Caribbean in the summer, what's the best deal? And it finds all the different providers and finds you the best option. So that worked very well, and he had a small team of people helping manage that portfolio and build these new companies. And then as we've expanded towards biotech, we've brought in a few more scientists who understand that particular space, in-house legal team, people more involved in capital raising for that fund. And it's been pretty organic in that sense. But yeah, I don't know if it's structured. I mean, a lot of other family offices have someone who is responsible for one particular asset class, head of fixed income, head of alternatives, whatever. We're not really structured in that way. It's much more entrepreneurial. We're first generation. It's really company building is our bread and butter.
Sounds the Wild West of family offices in the best possible sense.
I couldn't agree more.
Pioneering family office.
That's how we like to think of ourselves.
So does he have any vanilla investments? Does he have a traditional portfolio in any sense of the word?
Not really. I mean, I think we quite enjoy anything that moves the dial. So sort of deep tech, any emerging science will excite us. We've got a few things that are a bit more vanilla. I mentioned that software development company, for instance. But generally, we like to look at people who believe they might change the world, and so long as the numbers add up, we'll get involved. And
with the kind of emerging fund interest, one of the conversations we often have is the difference in appetite, in risk appetite, and return profiles that family offices have in comparison to institutional investors.
Yeah.
And family offices often wanting a bit more of that, what we always call sex and violence. Mm-hmm. Double-digit returns are the target, and a double-digit volatility is okay and acceptable to go along with those punchy returns.
Yeah.
Is that what you're going to be looking for, at least on a hedge fund basis, if not a VC fund basis? Or is that still completely open?
No, I mean, you're right. I mean, you know me well, and sex and violence are things that resonate quite well with my character. And I think when we're looking at alternatives, the problem I found with institutional investors is that they're boring, without wanting to slag off any of my friends in that space. They look at achieving a certain return every year. They want to keep their jobs, so they just try and achieve that. Once they find a new investment, they do due diligence through a huge investment committee for months and months and months, and then they eventually allocate to one of 5 different fixed income funds. Brilliant. The family office world, as you said, I mean, and within the family office world, we're very much focused on high risk, high return investments, which, I mean, you only live once. I think if you could potentially make 10,000x on some sort of emerging science, as long as you back enough of them, that's how you spread the risk. It's foolish to put all of your money on Bitcoin and hope it all plays out. But if you look at enough opportunities and you've done your due diligence, the potential for making huge amounts of money massively outweighs just the safe wealth preservation focus that a lot of people have in terms of life gratification, in my opinion.
Yeah. It sounds like failure is probably one of your very best friends in that attitude. You've got to hunt out failure and actually really enjoy it and make the most out of it, because it can be a very powerful tool, can't it?
Big time, yeah. And if you don't make mistakes, you don't learn anything. So VC is when you get into VC, you have to understand that a lot of the things you back won't work out, and it doesn't matter so long as one of them does and has that 10,000x return that you're craving. Okay, 10,000 is maybe pushing it, but the huge moneymaker will mean that you're covered in terms of all the failures. And I say all the failures, my principal's track record is pretty spectacular, without wanting to big him up too much. If you look at the track record, he's got an average of 12.5x on his investments. Okay, so not 10,000x. I was exaggerating a little bit, but very, very impressive.
That's the moonshot, but it's possible.
It's possible. It's definitely possible, particularly in biotech. I think, particularly in this new class of emerging startups in that particular science, because if you can find a pill that will cure whatever, name it, cancer, I mean, the returns will be astronomical, absolutely insane. So I do see biotech as the hottest space at the moment in terms of the equity multiple potential, ultimately.
You think once that fund's full up, there'll be a chance to do another fund after that and after that?
I'd be absolutely astonished if we don't launch another fund, but let's see. It's not up to me.
100 million is not a lot of money in the fund space.
It's not, because our strategy is quite different to some of our competitors. So there are a couple of other big longevity funds out there, and some of them have the attitude of putting small tickets into as many things they can find, which is, I suppose, the model I just outlined, but hoping that a couple of them work out. With this particular fund, our strategy is a little different. We're very high conviction on a couple of things. So we aim to build 2 or 3 companies a year, that's it. Go in very early, and if at the early stages it feels like it's not going to work out, we pull out. The thing in biotech, as opposed to normal tech, is that value is added not by looking at revenues and growth in the traditional sense. Value in biotech is measured by de-risking, because you've got to go through all of these phases, clinical trials with the FDA. And so that's the challenge. You create a drug that does amazing things. However, what does it also do to humans? What does it, all of these side effects. So the real challenge in biotech is getting through these clinical trials and these different phases outlined by the FDA. I forget why I mentioned that, but I found it interesting, so I thought I'd just put it out there.
No, it's perfect. Moving on to, we talked about what's been going on recently. What are you looking forward to in 2021, both in a professional and personal capacity?
It'd be nice not to be just stuck in my flat on Zoom for the whole of the year. So I'm looking forward to hopefully doing that, at least in the latter half of 2021. Let's see, really. It'll be interesting to see what emerges out of the ashes of this weird world we've inherited from COVID. As I said, we're looking very actively at funds, VC funds now in deep tech and the life sciences. So we'll be eyeing up a lot of those across the board, seeing what's out there. I imagine there'll be a lot of first-time funds springing up with new, interesting ideas. But yeah, we'll have to just wait and see what happens. I've got no particular concrete goals, because I had a lot of concrete goals at the start of 2020. It didn't quite pan out as I expected. So I'm just a little more cautious now, and I'm just going to freestyle it a little bit more.
Where's the first holiday, and which is the first restaurant you're going to go to properly? Not the distanced eating, but the big group of mates. And is it you're going to be on top of a mountain or on the beach? Or?
Well, I'm going to Mexico in a couple of weeks. As is most of London, it seems. I'm going to Tulum.
I'm booked for Tulum on the 2nd of January.
Man, I'll see you there.
Can we go? Because I
don't know. Yeah, let's see. Yeah, I think so. About half of London seems to be going to Tulum. So.
Well, that's made me feel a lot better, because I didn't think we could go. These rules are changing so regularly.
Let's see. Let's see. Yeah. Well, hopefully I'll see you there.
Well, we actually have a hedge brunch AYU villa.
You're joking?
In Tulum over New Year's. So.
Oh man. Okay. Well, I'll definitely see you there. Looking forward to it.